going on, everyone? It is 4:45, not 5, but we are going at 4:45 in the afternoon here in Southern California, 7:45 over there on the East Coast, and somewhere else it is late evening. It might even be Sunday somewhere in the world, but no matter where you are, it is time for Cinema Crusaders, that show where we look at movies that are at least 10 years old and we review them, hoping that introduce them to new audiences. And I am one of those new audiences today. We are reviewing a movie that I have actually never seen before. As you can see from the intro, we have officially kicked off spooky season here, which will go all the way through Halloween on Cinema Crusaders. This movie we're doing here is technically classified as a sci-fi horror film, and we will get into it. So it qualifies for spooky season, and we are going to do it. But before we do that, I want to introduce my fellow Cinema Crusaders. First off, I want to give a shout out to Jeff Bracey and Lance Lucero, who are Cinema Crusaders on assignment right now. We hope that they are doing well, and we will welcome them back when they are free to come back. So with that, I'm going to introduce a man who is the owner of a dog. He is a teacher, an educator, a role player, a writer, an editor, and just an all-around great human being who happens to smell really nice. Don't ask me how I know. I'm talking about none other than Steve Shadewing Sellers. How you doing, Steve?
How can I follow up an intro like that? But yeah, this was a movie that I had seen before, and but mainly because of the person that you're going to be introducing next to discuss it. He had actually gotten me into trying this movie, and on the surface, it's going to look like a very Saw-like movie, or at least a movie that kind of precedes Saw in terms of like death traps and things like that. But it does have a very distinct approach to it, and I think it would be kind of interesting because I wanted something that would both be horror and science fiction to kind of bridge where we were going with this. So I think this movie does that. So we'll get into
it. It definitely did have that Saw feel, especially at the beginning. But we will get into that once we dive into the movie. First, I need to introduce our next co-host today. He is an honorary Cinema Crusader for the next several weeks, at least through our Halloween during the spooky season. He is someone that I have done podcasts before, including Countless Corpses. We game together. He is a writer. He currently has a book out called The Dread, which Steve here edited as well, and it's available on Amazon. I'm talking about none other than Mr. Mike. Don't call me Seamus. I don't know why I said that. Nunley,
how you doing? Nice. Don't call me Seamus Nunley. I'm not sure I'm going to take that moniker, but I like
it. Well, as long as you keep them out of halfling armors, that's what that
is. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing pretty good, and I'm gonna have a lot of fun. I think talking about this movie today. I think there's a little bit more going on than maybe you guys think there is.
Yeah. Well, all right. So let's dive right into this. So, at its core, for everybody out there who hasn't seen Cube, this is basically where I try and sum it up quickly so we can dive into the meat of our discussion. But a number of strangers wake up in a cube-shaped object. And the cube-shaped object is made up of, surprising by the name of the movie, a bunch of cubes. And right off the bat, we're introduced to the fact that, these are not just cube-shaped rooms. A guy is going through these rooms and he gets cut right in half because there are traps in various places in these rooms. And then these four individuals, and then eventually they're going to meet a fifth individual, end up meeting up, and this whole movie is about them finding out and exploring the cube, finding out how to navigate the cube, figuring out who they are, why these people are, who the people are there, and trying to figure out how to get out of this place. Now, I will say right up front, before I go around, we're going to do a quick, just your overall impressions of the movie before we dive a little deeper and start getting into the meat and potatoes of this. This movie although it did remind me of Saw with the traps at the beginning, the biggest thing this movie reminded me of, and I can't remember the name of the episode, but it's a Twilight Zone episode where all these people end up being in the bottom of a bucket at Christmas time, and they're dropped in together.
5 characters in search of an exit.
Yeah. So
Nice.
that really reminded me of that Twilight Zone. That's what this reminded me of, with the character work and everything. So overall, just quick first impressions of the movie. This movie is one of these movies. It is very cerebral. It's a movie that I could probably watch a bunch of times and keep picking up new stuff on. And it is, while it's not your pew-pew science fiction for everybody out there, this is science fiction with the hard S, like the big S, science and science fiction. When your movie means that I got to start figuring out math and stuff, I'm like, okay, I better strap in. This is some science fiction. So with that, I'm going to kick it over to Steve. What are your quick first thoughts, first impressions of the film before we dive into it?
Yeah, I think this thing definitely is one of those movies that makes you think more than is on the surface. Yeah, I think Mike is right about that, especially having looked at it again on a second viewing to look at this. Because when you kind of know what's coming, it's then a matter of, okay, what are you seeing, in retrospect that kind of adds up. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff that adds up, sometimes literally, given the sheer amount of math. Yeah, I would say hard science fiction is probably fair to say, because in the technical definition, we're talking about like scientifically accurate science fiction, that kind of pays attention to that. And in the fact that they're actually using math to do that, yeah, I would say that that's probably accurate. Yeah, and a lot of the traps are really kind of clever and interesting, especially like the first guy that got killed. I had kind of noticed, yeah, they basically cube diced him.
Yeah,
they literally chopped him into cubes. And
I actually call him
that's
Captain
completely
Cubicle.
on brand.
I actually call him Captain Cubicle.
Well, I will say that some of the traps felt very much like they would be at home in like Hellraiser. They felt like that kind of thing, and the whole aesthetic of the inside of the cubes, which we're going to get to as well, felt Hellraisery, if that's a word. Is that a word? So, but Mike's
close
like,
enough.
sure. Yeah.
We all know what it means, therefore it's a word.
Before we get to that, though, let's kick it back over to Mike. You are the resident. You're the resident champion on the number of views of this movie. But give us your impressions of the movie before we dive into the meat and potatoes.
Well, first of all, I must confess that a lot of my knowledge about this first film comes from having watched the other 2 Cube films.
Okay.
So that is going to affect it to some degree. But I think that, I guess, my very first impression of this movie was that it was strange. I didn't really get what was going on or why. They suggested all these different theories, and it was like, pick one, maybe it'll fit. And I just didn't understand it. But after several viewings and having watched the sequels, I think I've got a better idea of what's going on now.
Okay.
Do you want me to go into that now, or?
No, we're gonna break that down in a minute, because I think I think it's fair to say. So let's get into the meat and potatoes here. Normally on Cinema Crusaders, we cover like the cast and the cinematography and all that stuff. But I think with this movie, the majority of our time is going to be talking about what the F did we just watch? What is this movie about? So let me go around. Let's get some of the other stuff out of the way quick. So let's start with the cast. I'm going to start with Steve. Just give me your general impressions of the cast real quick. It doesn't have to be super long. If there's anybody you want to single out, please do. But let's just talk about the acting in the movie real quick, because I want to go around the horn on a couple of these things. I thought the acting was worth talking about. I thought the set design was worth talking about. And then I want to get into what the hell did we just watch? So that segment, we're going to call it that. So.
Yeah, I would say at first you're kind of looking at these characters and they're just these random people or seemingly random people. that have been thrown into this place. But then you kind of realize that they all have varying secrets or things that kind of contribute to either why they're there or them essentially, finding a way to get out. You have the Nicole de Bear character who Levin, who is like, okay, she's a student, but then you turn out it's because she's a math genius, and she knows how to figure out some of the traps and some of the coordinate stuff just on the basis of her knowing math. You have Worth, who is the cynic, and you find out kind of like why he's really cynical, which is basically that he was involved in designing the outer shell of the cube. And so while he doesn't know everything about the traps, he definitely has an idea of like what was going on when they made this thing, and like to a certain extent the people behind it.
Okay.
Yeah, you have Helen Holloway, the doctor, who is kind of like the moral conscience of the group. And we kind of find out a little bit more about her. You have Quentin the cop, who turns out to be completely insane, and we kind of get into that. And then Kazan, who looks like he's completely insane and is actually like one of the most reliable people in the group in terms of loyalty.
Yeah.
So yeah. And I'll also add one other character who I thought was really cool, but unfortunately he was too cool to live. And that was Ren, the Master Thief. That guy who had broken out of like 7 prisons, who was like the expert. And then, of course, because they had to subvert expectations, kill him within a minute.
Yeah, he was the Slipknot of this movie. And if you know, you know. So, all right, on to you, Mike. What did you think of the overall acting in this?
Well, first of all, I want to point out, Steve, I'm glad that you noticed that Holloway was the conscience. That is rather key. That is rather key there. But I guess my overall impression of the characters, I spent, particularly in my last couple times going through the movie, most of my time noticing things about Quentin that I had not noticed before. Little things that they don't talk about necessarily, but I'm trying not to go into stuff too deep right now. I liked that they all kind of it seemed, I like that their characters seem random, but that they have a place in there, and it is for a reason. So so figuring out what that is became kind of part of what the movie was about there.
Definitely. Now, I will say, going from just the strictly acting standpoint, I don't think that any of these actors are huge names, but they're all established actors, and they were established in science fiction, a lot of them. A lot of them had been in various science fiction stories. And I thought that the acting was very professional. And I mean that in not a derogatory way, but in a way that they did their job, they did their characters, and their transitions. For instance, one of the people we're going to talk about is Quentin. That's his name, right? Quentin?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. His descent into madness, that actor brings that to life very, very well, And there's a whole lot of layers going on under there where it's almost like I wish that there was a director's cut available where we could hear his thoughts, because there's something going on in there and it's not good. It's like, I want to hear what's going on in that brain, but there's a lot of good stuff going on there. So I thought that everybody did a really good job on that. One moment in particular with Quentin, he drops one of the other characters to her death. And the change of look on his face is chef's kiss. It's great. It's great not only for science fiction. I would say that is one of the true horror points in the film, because it is one of those twists in a movie that you get.
That moment there too, I think, was actually one of the better interactions between Holloway and Quentin, because it wasn't what Quentin's look definitely changed. He had the smile and then it went to that grimace, but that worked so well because of the look on Holloway's face when she realized what he was about to do.
Yeah, it was really, really
yeah,
good.
she saw the mask dropping. Yeah.
Yeah. And then when later the Quentin character will show up and he becomes almost like the villain of a horror movie, and he has that look as well. So this actor really pulled the whole thing together in a really, really good way.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go on to the next thing, and then we're going to get to the really heart of what we need to discuss here. And I think that's going to take the majority of our time. But I did want to talk about the set design. I'm going to pick this one up because I want to start with you when we get to what did we just watch, Mike. So set design, I will say that the budget for this, I don't know what it was, but it was probably pretty low. The set design is just a cube. And by changing the lighting, they could reuse the same cube over and over and over again. However, the cube is really well done, and it has a alien appearance to it that is also a little bit, I'm going to say it's a little bit demonic, but it's also human enough to think that humans could have made it, if that makes sense. So I thought it was a very smart design. So it's got this alien, demonic, otherworldly appearance to it. But then there are very mundane things like the hatches and other stuff that are just straight out of our world. So it makes you wonder through the whole movie what the hell is going on here, because it looks like it could be a normal cube room, but there's just something not quite right. So I enjoyed that. I thought the set design as well was very, very good. And then they utilized what looked like some CGI in some good strategic places. Kicking it over to Steve next. What did you think overall of the set and the art design on the movie?
I think they put a lot of thought into the design of this thing and how the traps were going to work, and also, there's a uniformity to a lot of the basic design, and then they change the colors and things like that to just make it different. And to the element that it is otherworldly, I like that they did that because it leads into the questions the characters themselves asked. Because you've got people like Holloway who are like, yeah, it's aliens, man. I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's the aliens. That sort of thing.
She's off her rocker to a certain extent, but that's my opinion.
She is. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, she's also right in some respects.
True.
And it's kind of worth it points out. You're kind of right and you're kind of wrong.
Right.
But I mean, the fact that the design of it leads to those questions. It's like, okay, was it the military-industrial complex? Was it aliens? Was it something else? The fact that you can't really tell by looking at it, I think is part of the trick. And I dig that.
Mike, over to you. What did you think of the art design, the set design, and everything?
I thought it was brilliant. I liked it for the same reason I liked the first Saw movie. For the same reason I liked that Ryan Reynolds movie Buried. It is just a brilliant fucking idea to put the show. You have a set that basically only requires 2 rooms. That's it. They got to go back and forth between a couple of rooms or whatever, right? So, I mean, that the fact that you don't have to go to a bunch of different locations and all that kind of stuff, and it looked really good. I mean, you genuinely felt like you were in there. Although I kind of picked up, you said Alien, but I picked up actually shifts from the movie Alien, how it's just very hard, cold, and utilitarian kind of an idea. So I really love that. And as I forgot to mention it before, the absolutely no bad acting performances in the entire movie.
Yeah, I agree.
None at all, no.
But I think that this proves that you can make a movie and it doesn't have to require on big flashy sets, as long as the sets are utilized well, have a good design and fit your concept, which is exactly what it did. So, all right. With that, we've spent 20 minutes talking about the acting and the art direction, but I think what this movie really comes down to, because this is a movie about how do you interpret it, what the heck am I just watched, all that kind of things. We're going to get into the segment we're going to call What the Hell Just Watched. In fact, I'm going to start making an intro on that, where we're going to roll that up. So,
what the hell?
Yeah, what the hell did I just watch? Mike Nunnally, go. What is
All
your
right.
theory on the film? And then we can kick it around and we'll go to another one. So,
Okay, so I will start with the theory and then I will explain.
okay.
This movie and all Cube movies are about control. It is
Okay.
about who has control, who doesn't have control, and how people react to those two scenarios. It is exploring that. That is what I believe that is what the writer is exploring in the movie. It is about control. And here's the thing, though. You find out in like Cube Zero, it's a third movie, but it was a prequel, that you basically have technicians watching the people that are in these cubes, and they're seeing them all die. They see the people come in and go out and blah, 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 blah. And, they don't know. They know that somebody is in charge up here. They have no idea who that is. Nobody knows who their boss is. And it's a lot like dude described in this movie here, where he said, nobody knows what's going on. You got one person doing this over here and one person doing this over here, and nobody knows what's going on. It's all under the illusion of some kind of control. What ultimately ends up happening, I think, though, is that you have a system of control that has given itself over to chaos. No one is actually at the top doing anything. Everybody's just doing things as if there is some sort of structure going on, and there isn't.
All right. So then let's kick that over to Steve. What do you think of Mike's idea there?
I think it's consistent with what Worth talks about in his whole speech to the rest of the group midway through the movie, because he's the one that's kind of saying, there's this part here and this part here, and nobody knows what they're doing. I mean, I think it's a reflection of things, maybe like an analog for like government inefficiency, and how like a lot of really stupid things happen, not necessarily because it's planned or somebody evil is planning it. It's more because of an uncaring system that is run incompetently or seemingly so. And you really don't know why things like this end up the way that they do, but it does, and it impacts lives. So I think there is a logic to that. Yeah, I can totally see it.
Okay. I agree with you. In fact, my theory has a little bit to do with control as well when we get to it, but it's in a different way of looking at it. I think it's really interesting, though, that you're just talking about are you talking about just the general concept of control and how to deal with when you're not in control of the situation and how these people are dealing with that? Is that what we're looking at here?
In a general sense, I think that this is talking about how systems of control can lose control of themselves.
Okay. And they take on a life of their own.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I believe that it's talking about it is talking about how we react to control in its various forms, whether we have it or not. And I think that each character seems to identify with a certain way of responding to whether or not they have that control or not.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you think it's fair to say, and I'm going to kick this question over to both of you, and I'll start with Steve, but then I'll go to Mike as well. Do you think it's fair to say that this is one of those pieces of art, like art or literature or movies and TV shows where, depending on who's watching it, there could be, a different interpretation for every person that's watching the movie? What do you think about that, Steve?
I think you're going to find that in general with most forms of literature, but in terms of this particular movie, I think that is very possible just because of how much this movie doesn't tell you, especially if you've not seen the sequels like Mike has, and know a lot of the little tricks that they're employing. But I think even if you're just looking at this movie like in a microcosm, because I mean, we don't know who set things up. We truly don't know a lot of the background behind it. We don't know what's going on in a larger sense. What the story has really focuses on is the microcosm of these people that are in this situation trying to survive. And I can definitely see the element of control and locus of control and dealing with the lack of control, because you have these people that had their lives put together, and they're all in this place where they have no control over anything, including their own survival, really.
Right.
And they're kind of forced to adjust to that, and I can definitely see that angle. But yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely room for an interpretation.
Now, kicking it back to you, Mike. Do you think that there are different rooms for interpretation? One, and two, I'm going to expound on that question a little bit, or expand that question a little bit for you. Do you think that it takes away from the whole experience, or adds to the whole experience to have watched the other movies in this? Could you just watch the first movie and take it as a thought experiment, or do you think, hey, if you got into First Cube, you need to watch the other movies as well?
I enjoyed watching the other ones, and I enjoy knowing more about the story.
Okay.
There are little things that even make the first movie more interesting. Like, for instance, in Cube Zero, one of the technicians actually breaks into the cube to save somebody, and he ends up going into the last room he was in. He gets to one of those safe rooms, one of the safe bridge rooms, to get to an auxiliary exit and get out with this person. But he is captured in that room, and he is taken out, and he is lobotomized, basically made into a child and sent back in there. Basically how Kazan was in the movie. Basically saying that Kazan was a technician. In fact, the director who did Cube Zero said that he wanted to basically explain what happened to Kazan and how he got in there, but couldn't technically make it canon. So he gave the guy a different name. But still, this is the interesting thing, that the Blue Room, the reason why Kazan wanted to go back to the Blue Room, the Blue Room for his character signified the last time he had any agency, anytime he had any hope, anytime he had any control.
Okay.
He wants to go back to the Blue Room. I want to go back to the Blue Room.
All right. Interesting. So they really build on the lore and give you something more concrete as the sequels go along. So
yes.
All right.
Yes. Hypercube is really interesting too, because it talks, it kind of feeds into the Quentin character a little bit. I don't know if you recognize this, but when you very first saw Quentin, the very first time he comes on screen, it's a bloody hand reaching up out of that hole. He had killed already before he got there. Then when he goes to the end, when he finally catches up with him again, he's covered in blood as if it had poured down on top of him. He had gone and killed other people in the cube and came back to them.
All right. I did not catch that. I thought that he had just gotten hurt. All right. Steve, let's go to you. What are your thoughts on, so what is your interpretation just with watching Cube of the movie? What do you take out of it?
I think a lot of the same things, but I think Mike has kind of spoiled me a little bit with this, because we have talked about this fairly frequently, before this episode. But I think a lot of it really, I think he's right about the locus of control thing. I think it's also really kind of a discussion of, what kind of people are they, when you take everything away that is civilized, everything that, who defines their roles and all of that, you take it away, and then they're just five dudes in a cube having to survive. What do they become? And we see, like with Quentin, he's just becomes a total psychopath. If he wasn't already, the mask comes off, and we see it over time. And this guy probably even enjoys what he's doing, like finding people to kill in there.
Is there anybody like me who doesn't believe that Quentin's really a cop, but thinks
he may have been a cop? He may actually have been a cop. There are cops that do the job because they like the violence of it. He might have been a soldier or something like that, and he liked blood. There are people like that.
I tend to think that he was a cop because of his insistence that he could just look at people and read them like an X-ray. He must have said that 3 or 4 different times.
Yeah.
That doesn't. I don't think. That seems like if you were posing, if you were just being a poser, yeah, I'm a cop. That probably is not something you would have come up with.
There's another kind of person right off the top of my head, I think, who could do the same thing, and this is who I thought Quentin was. I thought Quentin was a serial killer.
He most certainly was. He killed people before he killed that group, and then went and killed some more people, and came back and killed.
None of this is contradictory.
Yeah.
He could be a cop and be a serial killer. He could be a cop, and have killed a bunch of people.
Case in point, Dexter.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I mean, certainly possible. I think this is a guy who loves lording it over people. This is probably a guy who likes using his badge, for the power and for the mask of authority that he could use to hide his crimes. I mean, who knows?
Did you catch that as soon as David stood up to him? As soon as people said, "You know what? Screw you. We're not taking your crap anymore." Suddenly he cowered. Mm-hmm. Then it was all about doing things in secret.
Now,
yeah. And what does he do? He murders Holloway, in a cowardly, way. He doesn't fight her directly. He just drops her into a chasm.
Now, before I go into my theory, I have to ask you, both of you, and I'll start with Mike and go around the horn. But do you think that everybody in this, all of the characters, are reliable narrators? Or they're not narrators, but they're reliable in what they're saying. So the things they're saying are truthful.
Let me shed just a little bit of light on that.
Yeah.
Everybody in the cube, to my knowledge, is either a criminal who has agreed to do experimentation rather than take the penalty for their crime.
Right.
Or they are somebody that the people running the cube have put in there to stop them from letting anything out.
Okay. So they're not necessarily good people. So
they're not necessarily good people, and I mean, with the exception of like David, the guy who had just given up, there and perhaps maybe the mathematician, there was very little honesty going on in that room. It was mostly people reacting to stress and attacking the people around them.
Okay. Well, that's a definitive answer, but I need to ask, in your opinion, from when you were watching the film, what do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I didn't really trust anybody. The problem is we really have no outside verifiable facts to corroborate anything that they're saying. So we're pretty much kind of going on their word for what happens. I mean, I think there are some that are more reliable than others. Probably because I'm oddly might be the most honest of them, just because he's not all there.
I thought it was funny and ironic that the person I ended up trusting the most on their information was the person that I knew could absolutely verify was a liar, which was Worth. So,
Worth was the most trustworthy of the others, yes.
Or a deceiver, at least, So I thought that was interesting.
And I think with Worth, I don't think he was actively lying. I think it was more that he kept a lot of secrets and didn't want to talk about things.
Yeah, he was obfuscator.
How about self-preservation? By the way, I'm part of the people that put you in here. Just wanted to let you guys know that.
Well, see,
imagine how that would have. You saw how that went down.
But I didn't think that was fair. Not that it mattered what I think, if it was fair or not, but it's like he gets contracted to build the. I mean, that's like the whole Kevin Smith argument in Clerks about the people that were building the Death Star. It's like, you're a contractor. You're taking a contract job. You're doing a union job. You don't know what's being built for. You're just doing your thing.
They are memory holding people who are dangerous. That's what that's for.
I have to disagree with that simile. The people who were aboard the Death Star knew they were working for the friggin' Empire.
Oh, not the people. Well, what about the people that were first laying the first grid down? They're just putting a grid down. You know, it's like they're coming in there with some girders and stuff out in space. They're just the long haul truckers bringing in girders. You know,
Right?
like big. Was it? What was the girl from or the woman from Pee Wee? God, I'm gonna go down that rabbit hole now. Large Marge, Large Marge is going down. He's bringing in some girders. Large Marge is not responsible for the destruction of, uh, Alderaan. She's just making her living, doing her thing, scaring Pee Wee Herman out in space. So I don't know.
Well, I
That's
mean, keep
why.
in mind also, like, people were not supposed to know certain things. They're supposed to be over in their little cluster, not asking questions about whatever happened over there. It could be that Worth asked too many questions. It made him dangerous, and they had to memory hole him to keep secrets.
Well, Worth actually full on says that he searched to see if there was anybody on top and couldn't find anybody.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's probably when they
that
noticed
right there. That right there. But I mean, there's. I'll leave it there. I don't. I don't necessarily. I think that the key part in this scenario there, as far as that goes, is that it is an experiment. What happens if we throw a guy that we don't lobotomize so that he actually does know some information and put him in here with these people? What happens then?
Okay. Makes sense. It's a very sadistic game.
Yep.
Yes. So, all right.
Literally a game of death.
Well,
yeah.
Are you guys ready for my way out there theory on this?
Let's
this one is way out there, and this is just my interpretation. It is way off, but this is what I got watching it. Depending on, I'm going to go with the higher tier one, but I saw this in two different ways. Maybe it's just the way my brain's working, but I saw this really as a metaphor for creation, for existence. God brought everything into being, and everything works in a mathematical precision way, and the whole system was set in order and into motion. And then for most of us now here, we can't see who is running everything or how it's running, but it just keeps running, and we're confused, and people are living their life and moving through this cube of life, trying to get, out into the light to heaven. And they're doing all of these things, and sometimes people are seeking forbidden knowledge, and sometimes that leads you to being led astray and falling into the pit, the void, and disappearing completely. Sometimes it leads you to really bad ends. You get in bad situations and traps and stuff like that. And sometimes you get out, and people are trying to always interpret, what is the meaning of life? How do I navigate this thing called life? Figure out what it all means. And that's kind of, in a one over the world type way, what I saw was going on here. And I know that is really hippy dippy. And maybe there's a good reason I'm smoking incense and I should be like doing meditation over here. But I kind of got that out of the movie. So I'm just curious, are you guys going to tell me that I need to stop smoking stuff, or what, what's going on? So I'll go to you first, Mike. What do you think of that?
Well, first of all, I would like to specify he lit some incense. He's not actually smoking incense.
Yes, this is true. Oh, man, I have
positive weeds, man.
Yeah.
I think that is an interesting idea. I read a horror novella recently where hell was described basically as being concrete everywhere, and one guy actually had concrete feet that he was walking because he was taking hell with him. And,
I'm sorry, I find that funny. I'm sorry.
I guess in that light, I can kind of see the cube in that manner.
Yeah. You'll see,
yeah.
I will just throw this out there real quick. I saw it in two different ways. I could definitely see it from the, the more concrete way, and with the way you were explaining it, which makes perfect sense, and probably the other movies would have fleshed out even further. But I saw it in this way, and then I also saw it. Actually, there were two ways. I saw it as a metaphor for purgatory, and then I also saw it as a metaphor for hell, following like the Divine Comedy. So I saw existence, purgatory, and hell all the same time. So maybe I'm just in a spiritual mode right now. I don't know what's going on. So
I could see the hell analogy. I'm not. Could you elaborate on the purgatory?
Well, sure, and I invite Steve to jump in here. But with the classic, as I was taught it in catechism, idea of purgatory, especially building on it, the first time that was brought out in literature was in Dante, and from the Middle Ages, is this idea that you suffer for all the sins that you had in life, and that you're going through all these trials to wipe away those sins before you eventually fail and you descend into hell, or you succeed in purifying your soul and you ascend to heaven. With hell at that point being thought of as true death. Your soul, you are wiped from existence, so that you are never known to exist. So that's why I kind of got purgatory, is that they're going through this purgatory effect. And the only one who came out of it was Kazan, but like I said, I could be reading a whole lot more. In fact, I know I'm reading a whole lot more into it than's there. So
you probably are, sure. But I don't think that this is how the creator probably intended it. That having been said, is it an interesting approach? Is it valid given the information we have? Absolutely. I think it's a perfectly valid interpretation of the story and the facts. And it does offer an interesting lens through viewing the story. So yeah, I can kind of appreciate it on that one.
It's Steve's nice way of saying, "Oh, you're insane, Nem, but it's okay. We appreciate your insane."
No, it's my literature professor way of saying, that's a completely valid interpretation. You totally can. It's just probably not what the writer had in mind.
Yeah. Well, and all of us know that so many times people heap stuff onto literature that the writer never had in mind. So,
the death of the author, yes.
Yes. Okay. So we've talked about what the hell did we just watch. We got those things out of there, though. What I want to end up here now is, for everybody who hasn't seen this movie, I would like to go around and pitch this movie for a new viewer. Tell them why you think they should watch it, because this is one of the movies I think you should watch. I think it's a good experience for you to watch and enjoy and get something new out of. I have never heard of this movie, and I like that I watched this movie. So I'm going to kick it over to Mike first. Why do you think people should watch this movie?
Well, as the former host of Countless Corpses podcast, I do like a good death, and there are some nice ones in this movie for sure. But also, I would like it is a horror movie that explores the human condition in a way that I have not seen before. And honestly, horror in itself is about going into uncomfortable situations, but in a safe environment. And honestly, Cube is right there for that.
Cool. Although I will say that as far as the actually counting the corpses go, those are rookie numbers. They got to bump those numbers up. They got to get them higher. So, if you really want to punch with the big boys, you gotta pump those numbers up, man. So,
I was trying to be nice,
Yeah. This is it's
not like Pennywise numbers or anything.
Yeah. This is what is that movie? There was like some action movie that averaged like 1.7 kills per minute of the movie or something like that. It's like something insane. Over to you, Steve. What is your pitch for everybody for why they need to watch this film?
Well, I think Mike already covered it from the horror movie fan perspective, so I'm going to go the other way and look at it from a perspective of somebody who's less into horror. And that is basically that, it is a movie where you're following these characters and you're getting to know them as we do. You're dealing with a huge mystery surrounding this that is compelling. and you're dealing with a scenario where this movie really loves to subvert expectations in a good way. I do not mean that in a Last Jedi sense where they just, do things just to do them. No, it makes sense. The stuff that they do makes sense. Like the way Ren dies, for example, a huge shock, makes total sense. And it's also designed to show what kind of crap these guys have landed in when the most trained guy, the guy that seems to have it all together, is the one who dies first. And then you're that really kind of ramps up like the danger and the threat and the fear. And then you find out that the biggest danger is not from the traps or any of the other stuff. It's from within the group and the group dynamics and the messed up people and their secrets, which is fascinating. I mean, as a human drama, I think that absolutely works. I think Mike is absolutely right that it's the psychological drama that really drives the story. Even if you're just looking at it as a sci-fi story, and not really thinking about the horror-ish elements at all, I think it still works because of all of those elements. And as we've discussed, I mean, this is a movie that can be interpreted in a number of ways, and it's valid, because of all of that. And it gives you a lot of room for multiple rewatching as well.
All right. I will wrap up our discussion by telling you my pitch for why people should watch this movie. And I warn everybody out there, this is going to come with a little bit of shade in the truest sense of the word. You need to watch this movie to prove Bob Graham, film reviewer of the San Francisco Chronicle, prove him wrong and prove why he is such an idiot. Bob Graham wrote about this movie. If the writer-director was as comfortable with dialogue and dramatizing characters as he is with images, his first feature might have worked better. Bob Graham is a moron. Bob Graham doesn't understand, first of all, that films are visual mediums and there are a lot of ways to tell a story, and not all of them require people spilling their hearts out to each other, because the story here was told through images and looks and nuance and a whole bunch of other stuff, and it was brilliant in that regard.
You, sir, are describing what Alfred Hitchcock would call pure cinema.
Yes. And and also there is such a thing. The other thing that gets me about Mr. Bob Graham, and I don't know if Bob Graham is still working or even still alive, but if he's not alive, rest in peace, sir, but you're a moron. Bob Graham, sir, there is such a thing as experimental films. It's important to push boundaries and try new things. Otherwise, you get what a lot of Hollywood is now, which is cookie cutter stuff that is all the same. This is a different film. They do a lot of different things in it. It is not your standard science fiction or horror film. However, is it a good film? Yes. Is it an effective film? Yes. Is it worth watching? Yes. So Bob Graham, here is a Razzie from all of us as Cinema Crusaders. So there you go. All right. With that, let's do a rating real quick. We haven't done a good rating in a while, and then we'll get out of here. So around the horn, starting with Mike, let's do a 0 to 10 rating. On a 0 to 10 scale, what would you give this movie?
0 to 10. I'm going to put it at about a 7.5.
All right. Steve.
I was thinking like 8.5. I think it's good for it does what it does really well, and it does it with minimal budget. It does it without like a lot of big name stars. It is greater than the sum of its parts, and I think that kind of elevates it for me. Mm-hmm. Is it my favorite science fiction horror movie of all time? No. But it is really, really good for what it does. And it's one of those movies that succeeds at being experimental in the way that they did. And also because Bob Graham is wrong. Yeah.
Yes. Bob Graham, you were wrong. That is the name. That I'm going to change the name of this podcast after it's done. Bob Graham.
Bob Graham is wrong.
Yes.
I would also like to add. Granted, I have not seen a lot of Canadian cinema, but Cube is by far my favorite Canadian movie.
Right. Well, there was that time when it said Maple Leaf. Oh, that wasn't technically cinema. All right. Anyway, we won't talk about that. No, for my rating, I will say that I don't know how this always works out, but I did have this pick before you guys picked your scores. I would go solidly vanilla right in the middle with an 8. So I think this is a very, very good, solid film. It's enjoyable. It's worth watching. Go check it out. I think it's another one of those ones that it's foundational. It gives you something else to build on when you're enjoying movies and compare it to other stuff. Because there are a lot of things we were talking about before we came on the air. There were similarities between other movies and this movie as well. So I enjoyed it quite a bit. So with that, I want to thank you, gentlemen, for being here on Cinema Crusaders. Everybody out there, we have officially kicked off the spooky season, and we will be doing horror movies through the end of October. And since Mike is our guest, he will be selecting our next horror movie that we'll be doing next Friday. So get back to me, sir, with the horror movie you would like to watch for us all to review. Only caveat is a movie must be at least 10 years old. So
okay,
that is it. With that, thank you, Mike. Thank you, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you, all of you out there. Make sure whatever you do this weekend, have fun and get yourself a snuggly chair, some popcorn, maybe someone to snuggle up against, and watch some movies. And have a great weekend, everybody. We're out of here. Bye.